So today we're going to do some homemade sausage. Now in this tub I have 4 deboned pork butts, and I also have to my side over here my grinder. Okay, this is a Lem 1 horsepower 22 grinder. Now these pork butts are cut. Like I said, I deboned these already. Some of the videos you'll see out there online, there's a bit of misinformation with them. Now, I'm not saying that they're all bad, or that they're all wrong, or that they're all messed up, but there's a good bit of them. Some of the videos, they'll tell you to take your meat and cube it 1 by 1, 2 by 2, whatever. For the larger grinders, 22, 32, bigger horsepower, don't do that. Now here's the reason why I say that. These bigger grinders, the more that they run trying to grab those smaller chunks, the more friction builds up in this auger tunnel. Okay, this auger runs, turns, pulls the meat from the hopper tray up here down through the throat into the auger tunnel and then out from the plate. Keep your meat in strips for the bigger grinders. Okay, the smaller grinders you can do that with, like the 5, the 8, the 12. With the bigger grinders, don't do it, because all you're going to do is you're going to create heat, you're going to create friction, and the fat is going to smear out of your meat, and it's going to attach itself to the auger wall. Now, these are cut into strips. All right, they're big enough to fit into the throat of the auger. These are big chunks, okay, which is what you want. You don't want that small stuff, because the smaller you cut it, the harder the grinder has to work. That's plain and simple. So we have our meat, and we have the auger, or the grinder. Now on my grinder I have a foot pedal, which is off camera and you can't see. It's on the floor. So we're going to take some of that meat and we're going to put it up in the tray, and we're going to put a couple pieces down inside the auger, the throat. You don't want to do a dry grind with the grinder, because that just creates more friction. So we're going to load that up with the meat out of the tub, out of the lug. Now this lug is it's actually a bus boy or bus person tub. It's not an actual meat lug, but they have these at Sam's Club for $20 for a 2-pack, so you can't go wrong. And they work great. They hold like about 25-30 pounds of meat, ground meat. So now that we've got our hopper up there, or our hopper tray loaded up, we're going to get an empty tub Gonna get that under there. And we're going to start grinding. Now you'll watch as the meat comes out the front there. This is a coarse grind. It's 3/8 grind. And I'm going to put my hand over the front of this because there's enough force in this grinder that it spits meat out. So I'm just putting my hand over the front of this to kind of stop that from happening. Now this is a 3/8 plate or a 10 millimeter size, and we're just feeding that meat into the auger from the tray, and it's going through the grinder into the tub. Now we've got to reload the tub up here, or reload the tray. So while we're doing that, one thing you want to make sure of is when you're doing this, you want to make sure that your meat is cold. It doesn't have to be frozen. That is another, I wouldn't say it's a myth. It helps when it's cold, but not frozen. When it gets too cold and it starts freezing, it can make the grinder work hard as well. So we'll get some more meat up onto the tray, and then once we get that loaded back up again, we will continue grinding. We're going to grind this through one time on the coarse blade, and then we'll do this again with the 1/4 inch plate, which is 6 millimeter, and then I'm going to split this up into two 10-pound batches because I'm going to make a batch of sweet Italian, and I'm going to make a batch of jalapeno cheddar smoked sausage, and that will be our mix for this grind. So here we go. My hand over the front of this again, and we're off. This takes about 4 minutes to do 20 pounds. I didn't weigh this before I started because I'm going to weigh it afterwards when I split the grind up. So I didn't weigh this at all. Quite fun, actually. When you have a good powerful grinder and you're not using like a KitchenAid or a hand crank grinder, it's a lot easier. It goes a lot faster. Another reload, and then whatever's left in that tub, that's the end of the meat for the grinding. Like I said, 4 to 5 minutes for about 20 pounds. There's probably, I'd say probably close to 35 pounds here, give or take a few pounds. Because the butts that I had, they average between 8 to 8.5 pounds. So there was 4 of them. So I figure roughly 32 to 35 pounds here. Now when you get to the end of your grind, you're going to take a couple of handfuls of meat from your grind and put it back up into the chute, because what that does is that pushes out any meat that's left in the auger tunnel. It'll grab a hold of it and push it out the front of the plate. And then once you get that done, you can turn your grinder off, take the meat off the front plate, like so, and then we'll change out our plates here, and they'll switch over to the smaller 1/4 inch plate, 6 millimeter. So I need to do some rearranging here to get into the fridge behind me. Now I had some previously ground pork that I'm going to add to this. This was from a different time, and I'm just going to add this pork to this mix, like so. Okay, that's step number 1. Okay, so after the coarse grind and weighing them all out, we got 2 15-pound tubs worth of coarse grind sausage. There was a little bit left over in the tub, which is fine. We're going to take that little bit that was in there and we're going to vac seal that up for the next time. We'll just add it right in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to send this through on the next grind, which is, see, here was the first plate. This is the 3/8 to 10 millimeter. Now the other plate is in the grinder, which is 6 millimeter, 1/4 inch, which is what you want for Italian style sausage. You don't want anything finer than that grind. So we'll send this through the grinder. We'll get this all ground up. Then we'll add our seasonings and we'll go on to the stuffing. Okay, now that we've got the meat loaded up into the tray, we're going to start our second grind. Now this one takes a little bit longer because it's going through a smaller plate. So sometimes you need to use the plunger there. Now what you can't see on camera is right here is a guard. So you can't put your hand down inside that throat there's a guard in there that stops it. See, right there, there's a guard. It takes a little bit longer time to do. So we'll come back after this is all done. Okay, so there's the first tub, 15 pounds ground up with the 6mm 1/4 inch plate. Now we'll pop this into the fridge and work on the second one. So this batch, the first batch we did is going to be the sweet Italian. This batch is going to be jalapeno cheddar. Now, this is one of those things where you're going to see a lot of wrong information. You're going to see guys that are going to say, "Oh, high temp cheese is just dehydrated cheese, or it's low moisture, or something like that." Wrong. High temp cheese is specifically formulated to melt at a higher temperature, above 300. Regular cheese has a lower melt point, around 120, 130, some even lower than that. The idea of high temp cheese is so that when you're smoking your cheese, it stays put in the meat. It doesn't ooze out, it doesn't melt into the meat, it stays put. So when you cut that section of meat, or you cut into that sausage, or your summer sausage, or your snack sticks, that cheese is going to be in that, it's going to be defined. If you use regular cheese, or try to use regular cheese, it melts out. It creates hot pockets in the sausage, and it'll start oozing out of the meat. And it'll also create a grease pool in the bottom of the casing. It becomes very nasty, and it becomes very greasy. It's because it's not high temp cheese. Always, always, always use high temp cheese. Okay, so I'm going to cut these jalapenos up, get them de-seeded, and we're going to run these right through the grinder with the next mix. Okay, if you look real close, they're kind of hard to see, but here and here and here, that's the jalapenos that we ground up in the mix. So now what we'll do is with this is we'll get our spices in here. We'll get this all mixed up. We'll get protein extraction. We'll get the cheese in here. We'll get everything in here, and then we will test this for heat, because I don't want to go too crazy with heat. I think with the 6 jalapeno halves that I put in here should give us enough of heat as to not overpower it. But I also have ground up, dehydrated. These are jalapenos that I dehydrated myself. I have this ground up in a powder, so if need be, I can add like a quarter, half teaspoon to this mix if needed, and then we'll get onto the stuffing, and we'll put the cure in here, and it'll set in the fridge overnight because I don't have any cure accelerator in here, or I don't have any on hand. If I had sodium merthiobate, a cure accelerator to put in here, then I could just stuff it and then put it out to the smoker the same night. But since I don't have that, this has to sit overnight with the cure in it, so the cure will, work its magic in the meat. So we'll come back. Okay, so see this green right here? This is the jalapenos in the sausage. This was just what was left in the auger tunnel that I pulled out, but jalapenos. We'll get our seasoning in here and get it all mixed up and stuffed. Okay, so there we have our pork in here with the jalapenos in here. We have our seasonings in here, and there's the high temp cheese. Little 1/4 inch dices. Okay, now we're going to add 1.5 pounds of water in here. We're going to mix this all up, and then here's our cure. Since this is going to be smoked, we'll put the cure in here, mix this all up, stuff it, and then tomorrow we'll put it on the smoker. Where's the water?
There. I put ice cubes in it. But they're already melted. I thought that was
Okay, so now that we've got this mixed up, and what you're looking for is when you turn your hand over, that clump of meat that's on there shouldn't fall off. It should stick to your hand. It's like a paste. When you get to that point, you have reached protein extraction. And to that point is when you stuff the meat into the casing. So now that we've reached that point, now we get our stuffer and go on to the next step. Okay, here's our 5-pound stuffer canister from Lem. We have a stainless steel tube on the end of it. This is for 32 to 35 casing. We'll put this in the stuffer, and we'll get the stuff in our sausage. Okay, so now we've got our casing, 32 to 35 natural hog casing, started onto the stuffing horn, stuffing tube, whatever you want to call it. And here's the pile that's going to go that way onto the stuffer. Now, the stuffer other end is right here. So that canister will get put onto the other mechanism, and out comes the... Okay, so I have some water to help guide the casing off the horn. Here's the stuffer. Here's the piston. There's a crank right here. Can't see it really that great. But here's the piston with an O-ring. And then that pushes the sausage down and out the tube thingy. So there's the casing length on the horn. Here's the piston, and then here's the crank, which will put downward pressure on the canister and push the meat out of this tube. Now, one thing I want to point out is you'll see a lot of guys tie this end. I don't. Now, this isn't either right or wrong, but the reason I don't tie it is because there's air trapped in here. So when this meat gets pushed down, that air has to come out. So when you tie this off first, that air gets trapped and your casing starts to balloon. So leave this untied until you start getting it, till you start getting your sausage formed, and then at the end you can tie it off at the end. But to start it out, it's best that I found over the years to leave it untied. Okay, see, this is what I was talking about, getting ballooned. There's air in here, which isn't a problem. You just need to take a needle and make a little poke hole in there to deflate that. Casings are self-sealing, so when you deflate that and you extrude that sausage out of there, it'll be like it's not even there. Kind of like, when you go get blood taken, the skin heals itself. So that's what we got out of that right now. Okay, that is one casing length right there. There's probably about 12, I'd say 12 pounds there. And now we're starting with another one. And there it is, 15 pounds of jalapeno cheddar sausage that'll get smoked tomorrow. Now I get to link it. I have a little plastic straw from a drink bottle that I lay down on the link or on the sausage, and I'll pinch here, and then I'll move it and pinch to the next spot, and that gives me perfect sized links to vacuum seal. But there's the first batch.